For years, Israel and Iran fought a hidden war, spies in the shadows, cyberattacks that crippled infrastructure, and proxy battles waged far from the public eye. Each side probed for weaknesses, launching covert operations and sabotage missions, always careful to avoid direct conflict that could spiral out of control. This shadow war shaped the region, with both nations locked in a tense, high-stakes chess match, their moves calculated and their intentions masked. Suddenly, that caution vanished. In a shocking escalation, the shadow war exploded into 12 days of open warfare. The world watched in disbelief as the conflict burst into the open, shattering the illusion of control that had kept the region from the brink for so long. Missiles lit up the night sky, streaking across borders as air raid sirens blared in cities and towns. Civilians scrambled for shelter, their lives upended in an instant. Meanwhile, world leaders rushed to emergency meetings, desperate to prevent a regional catastrophe that threatened to engulf the Middle East and beyond. This was no drawn-out ground war, but a rapid, high-tech clash that pushed both militaries to the brink. Drones and advanced fighter jets filled the skies while soldiers operated cutting-edge equipment from command centers, making split-second decisions that could change the course of the conflict. Israel's air defenses faced their toughest test yet, intercepting wave after wave of incoming missiles. Iran, for its part, unleashed its missile and drone arsenal for the world to see, demonstrating both its capabilities and its willingness to escalate. The fighting was intense, the stakes enormous. One misstep could have triggered a regional disaster. Urban centers became battlegrounds, commanders weighed impossible choices, and the world held its breath, fearing the conflict could spiral even further. When the dust settled, both sides were left exposed, their vulnerabilities laid bare for all to see. Military bases lay in ruins, equipment destroyed, and the cost of escalation was clear to every observer. The war ended, but the tension only deepened. Diplomats scrambled to broker a fragile ceasefire while citizens lived under curfew, haunted by the fear that peace would not last. The world was left to wonder, not if, but when, the next conflict would erupt. The shadow war was over, but what followed was a dangerous, unstable peace, one that could shatter at any moment, leaving the region and the world on edge. The origins of the 12-day war are hotly contested, with each side blaming the other. One account blames Iran, claiming the conflict began after an Israeli airstrike killed Iranian officials in Damascus, prompting Iran's massive missile barrage in April 2024. Another version says Israel struck first, launching preemptive airstrikes deep inside Iran in June 2025, fearing a nuclear breakout. In this telling, Iran's missile response was self-defense, not aggression. The US is implicated in both narratives, either as Israel's defender or as a direct participant in the initial strikes. These conflicting stories fuel mistrust, making it nearly impossible to agree on who truly started the war. The ambiguity itself is part of the legacy, ensuring the conflict's origins remain shrouded in suspicion. No matter which timeline you believe, the opening salvos set a terrifying standard. In April 2024, Iran's attack was a coordinated storm of drones and missiles, designed to overwhelm Israel's defenses. Israel's Iron Dome and allied forces, including the US, UK, France, and Jordan, intercepted nearly all threats, averting disaster. In the alternate June 2025 version, Israel and the US launched surprise airstrikes on Iranian military and nuclear sites, aiming to cripple Iran's capabilities. Iran's retaliation was swift, targeting not just Israel but also US bases in the region. The result, a rapid spiral into direct confrontation, with both sides unleashing their most advanced weaponry. The world watched as the conflict escalated from covert operations to open warfare in a matter of hours. The stage was set for 12 days of unprecedented violence. The 12-day war was a showcase of modern warfare: airstrikes, missiles, and cyberattacks. Israel used F-35S and precision missiles to strike Iranian targets, demonstrating reach and restraint by avoiding nuclear sites. Iran's response was measured but determined, launching missiles and cyberattacks of its own. Both sides waged a parallel cyber war. Israel targeted Iran's infrastructure while Iranian hackers hit Israeli banks and utilities. The conflict blurred the line between physical and digital battlefields. Each side tried to inflict pain without triggering all-out war. The result was a hybrid conflict: explosions in the sky, chaos in cyberspace. This new style of warfare left both nations more vulnerable than ever. The war's toll was heavy, especially for Iran, which suffered hundreds of casualties and major damage to its military and nuclear infrastructure. Israel's air defenses prevented mass casualties, but the psychological impact was profound. U.S. officials claimed Iran's nuclear program was set back by up to 2 years, though uncertainty remained about hidden stockpiles. Israel's strikes destroyed key Iranian air defenses and missile sites, weakening Tehran's deterrence. For Israel, the war validated its investment in air defense and long-range strike capabilities. For Iran, it exposed vulnerabilities and deepened mistrust of the West. The conflict hardened positions on both sides, making future diplomacy even more difficult. The damage was not just physical, it was strategic and psychological. The region emerged more unstable, with old wounds reopened and new ones inflicted. The United States was central to every phase of the conflict, military, defensive, and diplomatic. From the earliest warnings of an impending attack, American intelligence and military planners were deeply involved, working around the clock to assess threats and coordinate responses. The Pentagon became a nerve center, with officials monitoring developments in real time and relaying critical information to allies. In one scenario, U.S. forces helped intercept Iranian missiles, reaffirming its commitment to Israel's security. American missile defense systems, deployed in the region, worked seamlessly with Israeli technology to shield cities and military bases from incoming threats. This rapid response not only saved lives, but also sent a powerful message of deterrence to adversaries watching closely. In another, the U.S. joined Israel in preemptive strikes, marking a dramatic escalation. American fighter jets flew alongside Israeli aircraft, targeting missile launch sites and command centers deep inside hostile territory. The joint operation demonstrated the depth of military cooperation and the willingness of both nations to act decisively when threatened. As fighting raged, American diplomats worked through intermediaries to broker a ceasefire and prevent a wider war. Behind closed doors, U.S. envoys engaged in urgent talks with regional powers, leveraging long-standing relationships and back-channel communications. Their goal was to contain the violence and avoid a catastrophic regional escalation. The U.S. imposed new sanctions on Iran, tightening economic pressure even as it floated, and quickly withdrew offers of limited relief. These measures targeted key sectors of Iran's economy, aiming to weaken its ability to sustain military operations. The sanctions were both a warning and a bargaining chip, part of a broader strategy to force Iran back to the negotiating table. Washington's balancing act was fraught. Maximum pressure, but also a search for de-escalation. U.S. officials faced intense scrutiny at home and abroad, as they tried to reassure allies while avoiding a spiral into all-out war. Every move was calculated, every statement weighed for its impact on both the battlefield and the diplomatic front. The ceasefire, brokered by the U.S., ended the fighting but not the underlying conflict. While the guns fell silent, the issues that sparked the crisis remained unresolved, leaving a fragile peace and a region still on edge. America's role was indispensable, but also complicated, caught between alliance, deterrence, and diplomacy. The U.S. had to navigate competing interests, shifting alliances, and the ever-present risk of miscalculation, all while projecting strength and seeking stability. The war reaffirmed U.S. influence but also exposed the limits of its power to shape outcomes in the region. Even as Washington played the role of ally, defender, and diplomat, it faced hard choices and uncertain results, reminders that in the Middle East even the strongest actors cannot control every outcome. At the heart of the war was Iran's nuclear program, Israel's red line for decades. The strikes on Iranian nuclear sites marked a dramatic escalation, pushing the conflict into dangerous new territory. Iran responded by expelling international inspectors, shrouding its program in secrecy and raising global alarm. Without oversight, fears of a nuclear dash grew, increasing the risk of future preemptive strikes. The war nearly reached the ultimate brink. Israel reportedly considered assassinating Iran's supreme leader, a move that could have triggered all-out regional war. The nuclear issue remains unresolved, fueling a cycle of mistrust and escalation. The world is left with less information, more suspicion, and a higher risk of catastrophic miscalculation. The nuclear shadow now looms larger than ever. The 12-day war with Iran stood in stark contrast to Israel's grinding conflict in Gaza. The Iran war was swift, high-tech, and decisive. 12 days, clear objectives, and a ceasefire. Gaza, by contrast, was a drawn-out urban quagmire with no end in sight. Israel's military excelled against Iran's state forces but struggled against Hamas's guerrilla tactics and tunnel networks. The Iran conflict showcased Israel's technological edge. Gaza exposed the limits of that power against asymmetric threats. The swiftness of victory over Iran only highlighted the frustration and stalemate in Gaza. International condemnation and domestic frustration grew as the Gaza war dragged on. The two conflicts revealed the paradox of modern warfare: high-tech dominance abroad, stalemate at home. The 12-day war ended quickly, but its impact lingers, leaving the Middle East more volatile and unpredictable than ever before. The scars of conflict are visible in shattered cities and traumatized communities, where the echoes of explosions still haunt daily life. The ceasefire, while welcomed by many, is only a fragile pause, a temporary halt in a much deeper struggle. Both sides remain on edge, locked in a tense standoff, with soldiers and civilians alike bracing for what could come next. Military forces are on high alert, fortifying positions and preparing for the possibility of renewed violence at any moment. The old taboo against direct state-on-state attacks has been shattered. Now, the specter of open war looms larger than ever, with the threat of escalation hanging over the region like a dark cloud. The world watches anxiously, aware that a single miscalculation could ignite a much broader conflict. Iran's nuclear program, now hidden from international inspectors, remains a dangerous flashpoint. The lack of transparency fuels suspicion and fear, raising the stakes for all involved. Any misstep or provocation could quickly spiral into another devastating conflict. Regional alliances have hardened in response to the crisis. The West has rallied behind Israel, while Iran has doubled down on strengthening its network of proxies and partners. The lines are drawn more sharply than ever, with each side seeking to bolster its position and deter its adversaries. The Middle East is now divided into armed camps, each side wary and watchful, raising the risk that a single spark could set off a much wider war. The region is a patchwork of alliances and rivalries, with every border a potential flashpoint. For ordinary people, lasting peace feels more distant than ever. The war has solved nothing. Instead, it has deepened mistrust and left communities divided. Hopes for reconciliation are fading as leaders struggle to find common ground. Without a genuine diplomatic breakthrough, the region remains trapped in a relentless cycle of tension and violence. Every attempt at negotiation seems to falter, and the prospect of a peaceful resolution grows dimmer with each passing day. The 12-day war may have been just the beginning, a prelude to a much larger, more dangerous drama that could engulf the entire region. The world holds its breath, hoping that history will not repeat itself, but fearing that the worst is yet to come.